Okay, 200 years ago, two grown men went to court, all the way to the New York Supreme Court, over a dead fox. Not a fortune, not land, a fox. One guy was chasing it. The other guy killed it and walked off with the carcass. And the fight over who actually owned that fox created a rule so fundamental that every first-year law student in America still reads it, still argues about it, and still kind of hates it. But here's the thing. This isn't really about a fox. It's about one of the oldest questions there is. When does wanting something and chasing something actually turn into owning it? Because the answer to that decides who gets the oil under your land, who owns a whale, and who walks away with a $700,000 baseball. Stick around. We're starting in a muddy field in 1805. Here's the setup. The year is 1805, out on Long Island. A man named Lodowick Post is hunting with his hounds, doing it properly, the whole production. Dogs and horses, running a fox down across a stretch of open, unowned beach land. Nobody's land, just wild, empty ground. And Post has this fox. He's on it. The dogs are closing in. By the rules of, being a decent human being. That's his fox. He found it, he flushed it, he's been chasing it for who knows how long. Enter Jesse Pierson. Pierson sees the fox running, sees Post chasing it, knows full well somebody's after it, and he just kills it. Steps in, kills the fox, takes the body, right in front of Post. A clean steal. And Post understandably loses it. That was his fox. He'd done all the work. He was seconds away. And this guy just strolls in at the last second and grabs the prize. Now, a normal person files that under the worst and moves on. Post was not a normal person. Post sued. Over a fox, which at the time was worth almost nothing. And he didn't just sue in some small local court and let it drop. He lost, he appealed, and he dragged it all the way up to the Supreme Court of New York. The two of them almost certainly spent vastly more money fighting about this fox than the fox could ever possibly be worth, which tells you it stopped being about the fox pretty fast. It became about the principle, and the principle turned out to be a big one. And this is the part that gets law students. Why does anybody still read this? It's a tiny case about a tiny animal, decided before your great-great-great-grandparents were born. The answer is that the court couldn't rule on this one fox without first answering a much bigger question, one nobody had ever really nailed down. So let's get into what they were actually fighting about. Here's the real issue. A fox running loose in the wild belongs to nobody. Lawyers even have a fancy Latin phrase for it, Ferae naturae, wild by nature. Nobody owns a wild animal until somebody somehow takes it. So the question the court had to answer was, what does it take? What is the exact moment a wild, unowned thing becomes your property? Is it when you start chasing it? When you're clearly about to get it? When you've poured hours and effort and money into running it down? Or does none of that count until you physically have the thing in your hands? The majority of the court sided with Pierson, the guy who killed it, the one who, by any schoolyard standard, cheated. And their reasoning was cold, but simple. Pursuit is not possession. Chasing something, no matter how hard, no matter how close you get, gives you exactly zero legal ownership of it. To actually own a wild animal, you need what they called occupancy, real physical control. Trap it, mortally wound it, or catch it. Post never touched the fox. So legally, it was never his. Pierson killed it, Pierson possessed it, Pierson owned it. Case closed. Now that feels deeply unfair, and the court basically admitted it. So why do it that way? One word, certainty. The court wanted a rule you could actually apply without a fight. Think about the alternative. If chasing counts, then how much chasing? How close is close enough? Do you need dogs? A reasonable chance? How reasonable? Every hunt in the country would end in a lawsuit about who would have gotten the animal. A bright line, you either physically have it or you don't, is ugly, but you can never argue about it. The law, a lot of the time, would rather be clear than be fair. But, and I love this, one judge was not having it. There's a dissent in this case that is honestly more famous than the actual ruling, from a judge named Livingston, and his argument is basically what you've been yelling at the screen for the last 2 minutes. Livingston's take was, are you serious? Foxes are pests. They're His words, roughly, noxious beasts that tear up farms. We want people out there hunting them. So who does this rule reward? The man who did the hunting, trained the dogs, put in the work, and was about to succeed? No. It rewards the, and this is a real phrase from the case, the saucy intruder who did nothing but sneak in and snatch the kill at the last second. Livingston said this should have been decided by a panel of sportsmen, not judges, because any hunter alive would tell you the fox belonged to the man chasing it. Reward the effort. Reward the guy who was going to win. Don't reward the thief just because he happened to touch it first. And you can feel the tension, right? Livingston is making the fairness argument, the merit argument. Effort should win. The majority is making the certainty argument. We need a rule that doesn't collapse into an endless fight every single time. And here's the uncomfortable part. For 200 years, the majority won. You have to actually possess it became the rule, not because it's the kindest answer, but because it's the one that's easiest to enforce. Effort is invisible and arguable. Possession, you can see. And this is why a dead fox from 1805 refuses to die. That exact rule, first person to actually capture it owns it, chasing doesn't count, is everywhere. It's called the rule of capture, and it decides who owns the oil and gas pumped out from under a property line. Pump it up first, it's yours, even if it drained over from your neighbor's land. For a long time, it decided who owned a whale the moment a harpoon made it fast. And in 2002, when Barry Bonds hit his record-breaking home run, 2 fans ended up in court over the ball. One had it in his glove for a split second before the crowd knocked it loose, the other scooped it off the ground. A California judge sat there in the 21st century and cited a fox, because the question was identical, what actually counts as possession? So that's the fox. 2 guys, a muddy field, a dead animal worth basically nothing, and a fight that quietly set the rule for oil, for whales, and for a 7-figure baseball. And the lesson underneath all of it is kind of brutal, honestly. The law often doesn't reward the person who tried the hardest or deserved it most. It rewards the person who actually, provably has the thing. Pursuit is not possession. Wanting is not owning. Chasing is not catching. Quick note, this is commentary and legal history for educational purposes. It is not legal advice, and I am very much not your attorney. If you like this one, tell me which case to break down next. There's a snail in a bottle of ginger beer I've been dying to get to.